This module of the course explores different ways to use computer software to get work done in legal practice. Computer software means the different kinds of programs that run on our various electronic devices. This includes operating systems which run computers, smartphones, and tablets. This also includes specific applications that run on these devices, which are used to complete tasks in legal practice, such as reading, writing, proofing, redacting, scheduling, and managing and securing documents. Software also includes the programs that operate on and through internet and network technology, including email, voice over internet protocol, cloud computing, and websites. The goal of this module is to help you understand more about software and how to use it more efficiently to unlock greater potential and increase efficiency and security in your office. Before I proceed, please note that I'm not your IT consultant or manager. I make no guarantees as to the effects or results of taking this course. Unintended effects could occur if some of my directions are followed incorrectly, so if you feel like you need any extra support or coaching, please confer with your IT person if you have one, or contact me directly. From a financial perspective, the software that I'll be discussing will ideally either be something that you're already using or be relatively inexpensive. For example, many of my demonstrations will be done on software from Microsoft, Adobe, and Google that's widely used. Other types of software that I'll be demonstrating will be free or relatively inexpensive, and I may have promo codes that you can use to purchase them at a discount. In addition to demonstrating software that's used on local computers, smartphones, and devices, I'll also be discussing online software that's used for cloud computing and website hosting and development. Lastly, please note that the demonstrations in this module will be done on computers running Microsoft Windows and smartphones running Android. Windows and Android are two of the most widely used operating systems for these devices respectively. For users of Apple products, equivalent methods will be available for what I'm demonstrating. Fortunately, the difference between platforms isn't as great as it once was, and most things that can be done on one platform can be done on the other easily enough. If you need any help finding equivalent methods, please get in touch with me for assistance and direction. Also, please note that I'm using software versions that are current to when this video was made. This means that my software version may not be identical to yours, and that your version may be ahead or behind mine. If your software isn't updated or is a different version, it may not look or work exactly like mine. However, the techniques and concepts that I'll be discussing will generally be available on most versions of the software. If you encounter any issues with this, you may need to update or upgrade your software, hardware, or both. You may wish to confer with your IT person if you have one, or contact me directly if this comes up. With that being said, I'm excited to be sharing my software tips and tricks with you. Let's get into the first lesson in this module. Text-to-speech refers to software that turns typed words into audible, synthesized speech. The purpose of this transformation is to achieve specific goals, which include proofing typed documents and detecting typos, and assisting with processing and memorizing information. For example, here's the sentence I just said, run through text-to-speech software.
For example, here is the sentence I just said, run through text-to-speech software.
In this lesson, I'll be showing you how to turn typed words into audible speech so that you can produce better written work and access a new avenue for processing and memorizing information. How many times a day do you draft written work, such as legal documents, letters, memos, and emails? Depending on your practice and workload, you may spend many hours doing these tasks every day. Are typos a problem for you and something that appear in your writing? Depending on how quickly you type and how much time you spend proofing, your writing may contain a few or many typos, which you may or may not be catching before producing final versions of your work. What would happen if you could quickly and easily check for typos and other drafting errors? You could finish your drafting more quickly, produce higher quality written materials, and be confident that the contents are correct and reflect your intended meaning. I graduated summa cum laude when I attended university for my undergraduate degree. One of the ways that I was able to impress my professors and earn straight A's was by submitting high quality work with little or no typos. How I was able to do this consistently was one of my best kept secrets, and here it is. Before I submitted my work, I proofread it using text-to-speech software. By doing this, I was able to catch typos, reduce redundancy, and improve the structure and flow of my writing. By turning typed words into audible speech, it becomes very easy to hear and detect typos that need to be corrected, particularly ones that spell check software fails to detect. Take the following example. Imagine that you're drafting an email to Mr. Lee, an associate lawyer at the firm Singh & Company. This is the first time that you are corresponding with Mr. Lee, and you want to appear professional and competent. Here's the message that you think that you've written. Here's what you actually wrote. Although this message is short, it contains many typos which aren't being detected by the spell check software. Let's use speech-to-voice software to listen to the text and detect the typos.
Good afternoon, Mr. Singh. We understand that your client was the store manager at the time of the incident. We confirm that we represent the store employees and are instructed to deliver the attached letter on their behalf. I look forward to hearing from you. Yours truly.
Typo number 1. The word conform should be confirm. This typo escaped detection because spell check software generally only catches words that are spelled incorrectly. If you write the wrong word entirely, the software fails to detect it if the wrong word is spelled correctly. In this case, the spell check software doesn't catch that conform should be confirm because both are valid, correctly spelled verbs. Further, this is a relatively simple typo to make because the O and I keys are next to one another on a standard keyboard. Typo number 2. The name Mr. Singh is wrong. It should be Mr. Lee. This typo is easy enough to make as you've never corresponded with Mr. Lee before, and the name Singh appears in the name of the firm and at the end of Mr. Lee's email address, lee@singhco.com. While not critical, this typo is potentially embarrassing, as Mr. Singh would presumably be one of the firm's founding partners, not the associate lawyer, Mr. Lee. Because spell check software doesn't know who you're writing to, it can't catch these sorts of typos. Fortunately, your ears can. Typo number 3. The word manger should be manager. This typo is unfortunately very easy to make. Whereas a manger is a trough for horses or cattle to eat from, a manager is a person responsible for business administration. Sometimes when typing quickly, a keystroke can be missed and lead to a word like this being produced, which is missing a letter. If you're unfortunate enough to be spelling this word and miss the letter A, this is the typo that you'll get. Like the word manager, there are many other words that, when misspelled, produce embarrassing and sometimes unintentionally humorous typos. The problem here is that when you look at the word manger, your brain supplies the missing letter that you expect to see, the letter A. Naturally, you meant to spell manager, so that's what you'll see at a casual glance. Spell check software can catch words missing letters, but not if the misspelled word is a word itself without the letter. The words manger and manager are both correctly spelled words, so the spell check software doesn't catch it. This is again another example of where speech-to-voice software will make the typo very obvious and easy to detect. These are only a few examples of the kinds of typos that spell check software fails to catch. Spell check software may also ignore errors involving compound words, punctuation, redundant language, verb tenses, and formatting issues. Fortunately, many of these errors can be caught using text-to-speech software. When checking for typos in this way, your ears will catch many common errors. For me, when I use text-to-speech software, the typos simply jump out and I can detect and correct them the instant I hear them. Before I send out any final work, be it a letter, email, or other document, I check it with text-to-speech software to ensure that it's perfect. Another big benefit of using text-to-speech software is that it can reveal problems around redundancy and structure. Imagine that you're drafting a document consisting of 4 paragraphs. In the second paragraph, you discuss a subject which you again discuss in the 4th paragraph. By using text-to-speech software and listening to the entire document, you may find that you can detect the redundancy and rewrite the document to increase concision and improve flow by merging all of your points on that specific subject into a single paragraph. In some situations, this may even help you get a 2-page document down to 1. Listening to your work in this way gives you a broader overview and a different way to approach it, which allows you to perceive it in a way that's more similar to how a reader with fresh eyes would experience it. After reviewing your document using text-to-speech software, you'll likely detect ways to improve it and produce a version that's shorter, punchier, and better organized. So how do you actually use text-to-speech software? It's very easy and can be done using different kinds of software. If you're using Microsoft Office, the easiest way is to open a new document in Word or Outlook. At the top of the screen, you'll see a down arrow, which is used to customize the toolbar. Click on the arrow and then click on More Commands. Click Popular Commands, and then click All Commands. Now that all of the available commands are listed, Scroll down and find the command called Speak. Click on Speak and then click on Add. This will add the command to the toolbar at the top of the window in this program. Click on OK to close the window. You should now see an icon at the top of your screen showing a text bubble with a play arrow. Highlight the text that you want to hear and then click the icon. This is what you'll hear.
You should now be seeing an icon at the top of your screen showing a text bubble and an arrow pointing to the right. Highlight the text that you want the software to speak and then click the icon. This is what you will hear.
In addition to helping with drafting and eliminating typos, text-to-speech software is also useful for processing and memorizing information. Another one of my best-kept secrets from my university days is that I studied regularly by listening to audio versions of texts and course materials. I used text-to-speech software to export text into audio files that I'd listen to when I was riding the bus, going for walks, or exercising at the gym. I used and continue to use a fantastic product called Text Aloud. Text Aloud can play text through your computer speakers so that you can hear it as a synthesized voice, but it also allows you to save spoken text into audio files. By converting written text into audio files, Text Aloud allows you to save and organize different files containing spoken text. These files can be accessed from different devices, including computers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. By using this method, you can listen to important information that you may want to memorize so that you can recall it later. For example, if you're giving a speech or presentation, appearing to speak in a formal setting, or writing any kind of exam or assessment. If you're interested in purchasing Text Aloud, please contact me for further information and a discount promo code. If you're not using text-to-speech software in your legal practice, I highly recommend that you start. When used by everyone in an office, text-to-speech software ensures that only high-quality writing is going out the door. No matter the audience, the written work will be deliberate and professional. I consider text-to-speech software to be one of the biggest tools in my software toolkit. I use it many times every day, and in this lesson, I hope that I've inspired you to use it too. Speech-to-text software turns spoken words into typed text through speech recognition software. This can be used in legal practice to draft memos, notes, emails, letters, and other documents. It saves time, is much faster and easier than typing, and eliminates the need for dictation. In this lesson, I'll be showing you how you can start using speech-to-text software. How much time do you spend dictating or typing each day? Depending on your practice and workload, you may spend a few minutes or many hours typing and dictating each day. What would happen if you could spend less time carrying out these tasks? You'd have more time that you could spend doing other things and free up staff and coworkers to do the same. Before I continue, please note that certain types of speech-to-text software use cloud computing technology, which may cause a recording of your voice to be sent from your device to a remote computer server for processing. Given this possibility, be aware that it's your responsibility to know what rules apply in your jurisdiction regarding protecting client data and preventing it from leaving your jurisdiction. If you're unsure about if or how any such rules may apply to you, I suggest that you confer with colleagues or a practice advisor. Many different developers make speech-to-text software, which is available on different platforms. In my experience, the easiest way to use speech-to-text software is on a smartphone. Most smartphones have built-in software that can be accessed by pressing a button that looks like a microphone on the touchscreen keyboard. When I select the microphone icon on my smartphone, it invites me to start talking. As I talk, the words I say are recognized and transformed into written text. Whereas some types of speech-to-text software requires users to train the program to recognize their voice, the software on my smartphone requires no training and works immediately. Take the following example. Hello, period. This is me showing you how to use speech-to-text software, period. It's capturing everything that I'm saying, period. Although the software sometimes makes errors with certain words and sounds, comma, it's generally quite good at recognizing spoken words and converting them into text, period. As you can see, the software recognized everything I said and turned it into written text. If I want to get this text onto my computer, I simply send it to myself by email and then copy and paste it as needed. In legal practice, I use this feature on a daily basis, usually after client meetings. Although I'd often take notes on my laptop during meetings, I'd also speak a memo into my phone using speech-to-text software by talking out what happened in the meeting and mentioning if there were any highlights, takeaways, or follow-up points. Because I can talk much faster than I can type, it was helpful to talk out an explanatory memo while the meeting was still fresh in my mind. To be double sure that I wasn't contravening any rules about confidentiality, I'd speak in a way which didn't provide any identifying information that might be sent outside of my jurisdiction. For example, I'd make a memo that may look like this. Today I met with the client at about 10 o'clock a.m., period. The meeting lasted about 5 minutes, period. The client brought some banking documents regarding the estate of her mother, period. I asked my assistant to scan and file the documents, period. I also asked that a letter be prepared to request more information from the bank, period. After I'd make the memo on my smartphone, I'd send it to myself by email so that I could access it on my computer. Once the memo was on my computer, I'd make a new file in the client folder, copy the contents of the memo into that file, and add in any other information that I didn't include when I dictated the memo, such as any confidential or identifying information. Another popular choice for speech-to-text software is Dragon Naturally Speaking. Dragon Naturally Speaking installs on computers and smartphones and launches from the operating system. It can be used to carry out all of the functions that I've been discussing. With respect to confidentiality, one of the major benefits of Dragon Naturally Speaking is that it processes the user's voice on their local computer and doesn't send the data outside of the system. If you're interested in purchasing Dragon Naturally Speaking, please get in touch with me for more information and an affiliate code. While speech-to-text software may not be practical for final polishing or formatting work, it's extremely useful for producing initial drafts and content. Take the following example. Idea for draft letter, period. Today I received a letter from opposing counsel regarding one of our litigation files involving a rear-end motor vehicle collision, period. I need to draft a without prejudice letter and address each of the 3 elements of the claim, period. I spoke with our client and we are instructed to settle the first 2 elements in the proposed amounts, period. With respect to the 3rd element, comma, we are instructed to push back, period. I need to review the case law provided by opposing counsel and distinguish it in my response letter, period. As you can see, in about 30 seconds of talking, I can produce text that would likely have taken me a few minutes to type. By producing an initial draft of the letter in this way, which is basically a description of its structure, you can get ideas down quickly and build upon them in the next draft. If you're not using speech-to-text software as part of your legal work, I highly recommend that you start now. I use it regularly, every day. Typing on a keyboard is necessary for legal professionals, but it isn't the most effective way to get words into a digital form. Chances are that you can talk faster than you can type, and that if you could simply talk out what you're thinking instead of having to type it out, you could produce better work more quickly and have more time to work on other things. In addition to fax and traditional paper mail, email is one of the most common ways that law offices correspond in writing. Although communicating by email can be quick, easy, and convenient, it can also present difficulties around volume, frequency, and timing. To control and manage how I communicate by email, I schedule when I send and receive it. In this lesson, I'll be showing you my specific practices for dealing with email. How many times a day do you communicate by email? Depending on your practice and workload, email may make up a significant portion of your communications. Do you ever feel that you receive too much email or that it's overwhelming you? Depending on how much email you receive, you may sometimes feel overwhelmed by your inbox and find that managing it and responding to email is just one more task on your already lengthy to-do list. Have you ever sent an email and later regretted saying something or not saying something, or you forgot to include an attachment? Unless you're perfect, chances are that you've committed one of these missteps. What would happen if you could exert more control over your email and put purposeful policies in place to manage it? You could spend less time dealing with email, spend more time doing other productive things, and send more effective and deliberate email messages. Before I show you exactly how to schedule email delivery, I'll tell you a story to explain why I became inspired to start doing it. I once had a client who hired me to act for him in a wrongful dismissal case. At the time, I didn't work with a dedicated assistant, so I was communicating directly with him by email. Although I found that he was a nice client, I started noticing that he responded to my emails after only a few minutes had passed. No matter if I sent him an email at 8 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, he'd respond only a few minutes later. While I understood that he had recently been terminated from his job and was eager to proceed with his claim, I found his use of email to be problematic for a few reasons. First, because the client responded almost instantly, it caused me anxiety and made me feel like the ball was always in my court and like I always had an outstanding action item which I was obligated to respond to. Second, because the client responded so quickly, it made me feel that he wasn't taking the time to read my messages with care and consider what I was saying. He seemed to respond equally quickly no matter the gravity or subject of my message. Third, I found it to be distracting that I almost always had a message from this particular client in my inbox. Fourth and finally, I had a plan for how I wanted the file to proceed, I felt that time was on our side, and I found that his emails were counterproductive to my strategy. To deal with these concerns, I started scheduling my email communications. As many do, I use Microsoft Outlook for my email. In a new email message in Outlook, under the Options tab, there's an option called Delay Delivery. When you click on Delay Delivery, you'll see a setting called Do Not Deliver Before. By selecting a date and time for this setting, the email will be sent at the selected date and time. In my practice, I used the Delay Delivery option for almost every email that I send. I'd either schedule my email to send just before the end of the business day or first thing in the morning the next day. Typically at the end of each business day, I'd have many email messages in my outbox, which were queued and waiting to be sent. Each message would send when the clock in the bottom corner of my screen reached the time designated for each message. Out of an abundance of caution, before I left the office for the day, I'd check my outbox to ensure that it was empty and that the messages were sent. Once I saw that no messages were waiting to be sent, I closed Outlook and left my email until the next workday. At this time, as I discussed in my lesson on smartphones, I'd also enable airplane mode on my smartphone so that I didn't receive any email there. I'd then call it quits and leave my work at the office for the day. In addition to giving me greater control over my email inbox, scheduling my email delivery also provides another big benefit, namely, the ability to reflect and make changes before my email messages are sent. By putting my outgoing email messages on a delay, I have a period of time in which I can consider if there are any changes that I should make to an email before it's sent. For example, if I receive an email in the morning, draft a response, and set it to send at the end of the day, many hours will pass before my response email is actually sent. While I'm at lunch, I may think about a particular email, and it may occur to me that I forgot to mention an important point or attach a document. Alternately, I may receive a new piece of information in the middle of the day, which changes what I want to say in the email that I've already drafted. Because my outgoing email is still sitting in my outbox, waiting to be sent, I can open it before it's sent and make whatever changes I like. If you've ever sent an email message that you've later come to regret, you'll appreciate how powerful this grace period can be. For example, in this message, I forgot to attach a document that the recipient had requested. By going into the outbox and opening the message, I've stopped it before it's sent. I can now attach the document and add wording, such as, "Please see the attached document as you have requested." By doing this, I've saved myself the need to send a follow-up email saying something like, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to attach the document. Please see the attached." This saves me time, produces smoother communications, and makes me look more professional, deliberate, and competent. Also, if I ever decide that I no longer want to send a message on a delay and want to send it immediately, I can uncheck the delay delivery option and send it right now. If I decide that I no longer want to send the message at all, I can delete it from my outgoing mailbox. If you're not using scheduled email delivery, I highly recommend that you do so as part of your practice around using email. While email can be fast, easy, and convenient, it can also be overwhelming and distracting. I hope that this lesson has inspired you to exert more control over your email communications so that you can start enjoying more of the positive effects of using email while experiencing less of the negative ones. In my lesson on smartphones, I discussed the importance of following rules to reduce technology-related distractions. While it can sometimes be helpful to be notified of incoming calls, new emails, upcoming meetings, and available system updates, receiving too many notifications or receiving notifications at inopportune times can be distracting and counterproductive. Although some people may rely on notifications or choose to receive them as part of how they use their devices or do their work, I believe that we could all benefit from receiving fewer frivolous notifications. How many times a day do you receive notifications from your computer and smartphone? Depending on your workload and system settings, you may be receiving a few or many notifications. What would happen if you received fewer notifications and only received important ones? You'd spend less time being distracted, pay more attention to important notifications, and have more time to spend working on other things. Receiving too many electronic notifications is a problem. As time's gone by, many organizations have become increasingly willing to inundate their own customers and users with notifications about new updates and features, many of which are relatively unimportant to end users and make it difficult to appreciate when updates are actually important. Even worse, spam telephone calls have been on the rise, and most people regularly receive bogus calls from fraudsters pretending to be taxation authorities or other organizations. Before I started exerting more control over my notifications, I noticed that I was regularly receiving many unimportant alerts about incoming phone calls, voicemails, emails, and system and app updates. To battle the negative effects of being overwhelmed by notifications, I began turning them off as much as possible on all of my devices. Once I began doing this, I realized that the vast majority of the notifications were about things that could wait and didn't need my immediate attention. I also began to appreciate that disabling notifications helped me stay focused on my work and prevent my device from making sounds at inopportune times. The first place that I manage notifications is on my computer. In Windows, I press the Windows logo key, type Change System Sounds, press Enter, and change the sound scheme from Windows Default to No Sounds. By doing this, I disable the distracting sounds that play whenever things occur, such as system messages, calendar reminders, and devices being connected and disconnected. In Microsoft Outlook, there are further notifications, which I disable. In Outlook, I click Outlook Options and then Mail to access the settings for when new messages arrive. The options are play a sound, briefly change the mouse pointer, show an envelope icon in the taskbar, and display a desktop alert. By default, many of these options are selected so that when a new email message comes in, one or some of these things occur. I unselect all of these options. To me, they're unnecessary and bothersome distractions. In addition to turning off notifications on my computer, I do the same thing on my smartphone. Using the Android operating system, I set my smartphone so that it doesn't ring, light up, or show notifications when it receives new calls, voicemails, or messages. For example, on my phone, I go to Settings, then Sounds and Vibrations, and I set the phone to mute, which includes deactivating the vibrate setting. Out of an abundance of caution, I also go into individual apps and then disable tones and vibrations. Because your smartphone likely won't be the same model and version as mine, these settings will look different on your device. If you need any help with finding your settings, please feel free to contact me. Like my email on my computer, I regularly look at my smartphone every day, so I don't need notifications of incoming calls, voicemails, or messages. If someone calls, they can leave a voicemail and I'll deal with their call later. The only notifications that I allow are the ones that appear in the top bar of my smartphone so that I know if someone has called, left a voicemail, or sent a message. While these settings work for me, you may prefer different settings. You may want to receive notifications, take calls as they come in, and allow your phone to ring or make noises, vibrate, or light up. Alternately, you may want to receive only some notifications, such as incoming calls and calendar notifications, but not others, such as receiving text messages, or vice versa. Whatever your preference is, this can be achieved by fine-tuning the settings in your smartphone. The main exception to my rule on not receiving notifications is that I always allow calendar notifications. I generally want to be notified of my calendar events before they happen. Unlike email and telephone call notifications that don't always relate to concrete and pressing matters, calendar notifications usually relate to real-world events that are of higher importance. For example, in legal practice, I wanted to have advance warnings of client meetings, lunch appointments, court hearings, real estate transaction closings, deadlines for filing documents or paying bills, and birthdays for clients, staff, family, and friends. By syncing my smartphone with Microsoft Outlook, my calendar entries appear in my calendar app, and I receive reminders as they happen. Through better use of notification and calendar settings, I've reduced distractions in my work and made it easier to pay attention to important things. No matter the size of your workload, I recommend that you give your notifications a checkup and consider which ones you regularly receive and whether you'd be better off not receiving them. There are only so many hours in a day, and we all only have so much time, energy, and attention. By managing notifications and setting rules around which ones you see, you can reduce distraction and benefit from having more time and energy to focus on other tasks. In the world of legal practice, time is money. Clients pay lawyers for the minutes and hours that they spend putting their knowledge and expertise into practice. By using keyboard shortcuts, macros, and workflows, it's possible to make simple and powerful increases in productivity. In this lesson, I'll be showing you how to work more efficiently by using these functions. How often do you use a combination of mouse and keyboard actions to complete tasks on your computer? You likely do this on a regular basis, as this is part and parcel of using a computer. What would happen if you knew more about using keyboard shortcuts and had more knowledge about the kinds of software that can be used to automate work? You'd have greater opportunities to use different options, ranging from relatively simple to relatively complex, to get work done faster and with greater accuracy and efficiency. For as long as I've used computers, I've used keyboard shortcuts. I mainly use Microsoft Windows, where there are countless keyboard shortcuts which are available as alternate ways to perform actions. While going over every shortcut would take hours and is beyond the scope of this course, there are particularly important ones that I use regularly, every day, and find to be the most useful. To open files within folders, I simply press Enter when they're selected in the File Navigator. To open applications, I press the Windows logo key and then start typing the name of the program that I want to open. If I wanted to open Excel, I press the Windows logo key and start typing EXC. As I type, the best match is shown in the search area, and then I simply press Enter to launch the program or navigate using the arrow keys if I want to select something else. For example, if I see that Excel is being recommended, but I want to open one of my recently opened documents, I use the arrow keys to navigate to that document. Once I'm in Excel, if I want to close the spreadsheet but not close the entire application, I hold down the Alt key and press W. This also works inside of web browsers to close tabs without closing the entire browser application. If I want to close an application entirely, I hold down the Alt key and press F4. This is the same as clicking the X in the top right corner. To open a File Explorer window, something that I do countless times every day, I hold down the Windows logo key and press E. Once it's open, I use the Tab, Arrow, and Enter keys to move the selector and navigate through files and folders. Depending on the application that you're in, the Tab key can also be used to select different parts of the application. When I'm in a File Explorer window, and once I've navigated into subfolders, I can use the buttons on my mouse to navigate forward and backward through the folders, or I can achieve this by holding down the Alt key and pressing the left and right arrow keys. To rename files or folders, I press F2. To cut, copy, and paste files, folders, or text, I use Ctrl+X, Ctrl+C, and Ctrl+V respectively. To undo my last action, I use Ctrl+Z, and to redo my last action, I use Ctrl+Y. These shortcuts also work within many applications, including Microsoft Word, Outlook, Excel, and PowerPoint. To navigate between open applications, I hold down Alt and press Tab. This allows me to look through and switch between my open programs. Another very powerful shortcut is the Windows Snap feature. By holding the Windows logo key and using the arrow keys, you can cause your selected window or application to snap into different locations. For example, if I have a new Word document open which is taking up my entire screen, I can hold down the Windows logo key and press the left arrow to move it to the left half of the screen. If I hold the Windows logo key and press the up arrow, it'll take up the top left quarter of the screen. If I hold the Windows logo key and press the up arrow again, the window will return to its original full size. These keyboard shortcuts can also be used to move applications between different screens on different monitors. Within applications like Microsoft Word, I use specific shortcuts to make changes to text and formatting. I use Ctrl+B to bold, Ctrl+U to underline, and Ctrl+I to italicize text. I also use Ctrl+L, Ctrl+E, Ctrl+R, and Ctrl+J to align left, center, align right, and justify text, respectively. One very important keyboard shortcut that I use that many people may not know about is holding down the Control key while pressing any of the direction arrows. By doing this, the blinking cursor will jump entire words or paragraphs instead of moving one letter or one line at a time. Used in conjunction with the page up and page down buttons, using Control plus the direction keys will give you a big boost in your ability to navigate text within a document. To search for keywords in the File Explorer or within documents, I hold Control and press F. For example, after using the Find command, I see that this document contains the word tangerine. When I open it, I use Ctrl+F again and see that the document contains the word 7 times. If I wanted to replace the word tangerine with the word orange, I would hold Control and press H to use the Find and Replace command. Instead of manually going to the 7 places where the word tangerine appears and replacing it with orange, I can use the Find and Replace command to replace the instances all at once. Finally, when I leave my computer unattended, I hold down the Windows logo key and press L to lock it. This is a very simple shortcut that has become automatic for me. Thanks to my fingerprint readers, it's just as easy for me to unlock my computer and get back to work. Although I may use other shortcut keys that I haven't mentioned, these are by far the ones that I find to be the most useful. If you aren't using keyboard shortcuts, I strongly suggest that you start now. One simple way to get started is to print out a table which shows various shortcuts and explains what they do. These tables can be found online on the Microsoft and Apple websites. The power of using keyboard shortcuts is that they provide faster ways to complete simple tasks and with fewer keystrokes, while allowing you to keep your hands on the keyboard. However, sometimes simple and repetitive jobs may require so many keystrokes that it's still a big task. For these kinds of jobs, macros can come in very handy. In simple terms, a macro is a small program made up of a sequence of pre-recorded instructions. For example, imagine that you had these 38 time entries in a spreadsheet, and that you wanted to enter them into time management software. Manually retyping the data would be a big job, take a long time, and duplicate the efforts that were made to type the entries in the first place. Even copying and pasting the data into the time management software would be a big job. The fastest and most efficient way to achieve the task would be to produce a simple macro to enter the data, field by field. By using a macro, you only need to record one sequence of actions, which will complete the entire task when repeated. In this case, I'll use the Windows logo key and arrow keys to place the spreadsheet on the left half of the screen and the time management software on the right half. I'll launch my macro software, which is called JitBit. Once it's open, I'll click Record and then perform the actions to input the data from the spreadsheet into the time management software. As my final action, I'll ensure that the cursor is on the correct position so that when I replay the macro on repeat, it'll enter the next entry and then the next entry after that, and so on. Because I know that I have 38 entries to complete, I'll set the macro to repeat 38 times. Once I select play, the software will repeat my recorded actions and enter the information, entry by entry. To test the difference in time it would take to complete the task of entering the data manually versus using a macro, I tested it by using both ways. By using a macro, it took me about 30 seconds to open the program, arrange the windows, record the macro, and set it to repeat. Conversely, by using a manual method of copying and pasting data, it took me about 15 minutes to manually copy and paste each of the 5 elements of the 38 entries. I had to copy and paste 190 times, and my fingers were sore by the time I finished. Although the macro also took about 15 minutes of real time to complete, during that time I was free to leave my computer and let the macro run while I worked on other things. Further, had I increased the playback speed of the macro, it would have completed the actions even more quickly and taken even less time. Similar to a macro, a workflow is a repeated pattern of programmed activity, which is used to achieve a certain specific goal. For example, if your office receives correspondence by fax, there are workflows that you can use to reduce paper clutter and increase utility. With the right settings in place, you can arrange for your fax machine to receive fax messages without printing them out and then save digital copies of the faxes to a dedicated folder. A workflow can be configured to watch this folder, and when a fax comes in, send an email to your staff to notify them that a new fax has been received and is ready for processing. By using this kind of a workflow, you can save money on paper faxes not being printed, save time by not needing to rescan faxes that you've received, and be immediately notified when you receive new fax messages. Ranging from using simple keyboard shortcuts to using more advanced software like macros and workflows, many possibilities exist which can make it faster and easier to do legal work on a computer. While using macros and workflows are somewhat advanced functions which may not be practical for many users, it's important that you know about them so that if the opportunity ever arises, you'll know what's possible. Keyboard shortcuts, macros, and workflows are very powerful tools that can help you complete many tasks more quickly and automate some completely. The sky's the limit, and if you can imagine it, these pieces of software present almost endless possibilities. As I discussed in the lesson on desktop scanners, many powerful software tools are available for working with digital documents, which go beyond what can be done with paper alone. In this lesson, I'll be showing you how to use optical character recognition and document customization tools to get more out of your digital documents. I'll also be showing you how to make your own forms and work with improved custom precedents. How many times a day do you work with digital documents? If you're like me, you work with them regularly and more often than with paper. What would happen if you could quickly and easily make your documents smaller and more versatile? You could work faster, more remotely, require less storage space, and have secure and more useful documents. What would happen if you could make your own forms and improve your existing precedents? You'd be able to enjoy the time savings that come with receiving and entering digital information and making changes to single fields in documents that will update information across entire documents. Optical character recognition, or OCR, refers to the conversion of images of text into computer-encoded text. Whenever you scan a piece of paper using a document scanner, it's essentially taking a snapshot picture. Once the scanner scans the document, it produces a file which contains an image of the document. Running OCR on the document unlocks the file's greater potential by converting it into a format which retains the picture of the document, but also adds computer-encoded text in the places where it appears. For example, this single piece of paper is a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation. By running it through my scanner, I've created a PDF file which contains an image of the page. When I open the document in Adobe Acrobat and move my cursor over the text, it doesn't change. If the document contained recognizable text, the cursor would change to the Text Select cursor. When I select Scan in OCR, then Recognize Text, then In This File, and then Recognize Text, Acrobat processes the document for text and recognizes it. I can now select the text and copy and paste from the document. Being able to copy and paste from a scanned document is extremely useful and can save a great deal of time by allowing text to be pasted from the file, thereby eliminating the need to copy type. Another important aspect of running OCR on a scanned document is that it reduces its size. By having smaller files, you can get more out of your existing computer storage space, reduce IT costs, and more easily share digital documents. Most importantly, running OCR on a scanned document allows its contents to be searched from within the document and your operating system. For example, imagine that you're doing some work based on a lengthy paper document. Once you scan the document, you find that it's 7.66 megabytes in size and is 38 pages long. For the purposes of your work, you're interested in the topic of remuneration of directors and want to find the keyword salary. However, you can't search for the keyword in the document or in the operating system until OCR is run on the file. After you run OCR, the document is now 2.34 megabytes in size, about 1/3 of its original size. By searching for the word salary in the operating system, it returns the file as a search result. This indicates that the document contains the word salary. Once you open the document, you can now search again for the keyword salary, or any other keywords that you may be looking for. The search shows that the word salary appears twice, here on page 20, and again here on page 31. When documents are in OCR format, advanced redacting functions are also available. Imagine that you wanted to send out a document with certain information redacted. To redact in Adobe, I select More Tools, then Redact. I then select text in the document, or use my mouse to draw rectangles over areas that I want to redact. Once I'm done selecting areas and text, I click Apply and then OK. To ensure that I'm not saving over the original document, the program prompts me to select the name and location for the newly created file with the word redacted at the end. I then click Save, and that's it. All of the areas that I selected have been redacted, and the data that was there is now gone. Another powerful way to use digital documents is to create forms from existing documents. For example, imagine that you receive this one-page form by regular mail and that you need to complete it for 10 different clients. Although you could make 10 photocopies of the form and use a pen to complete each, there's a much easier way to do it. Once the document is selected, I open it in Acrobat and then select More Tools and then Prepare Form. As you can see, the software has detected the various fields in the document and made it into a fillable form so that I can enter digital text into the document. Instead of making photocopies and using a pen and paper to complete the forms, I can save 10 copies of the file, one for each person, and enter the data digitally. Further, if I know that a certain field will be the same for all 10 people, I can enter it before I make copies of the file and save myself from having to enter it 10 times. By using a copy for each person in this way, I only need to enter information for each person once, and I have digital copies that I can keep for my records and work with again if I ever need to make changes in the future. To create forms like this on my own, I use Microsoft Office to create and format documents. Once I have the document formatted in Word, I save it as a .pdf file so that I can open it in Acrobat. Once it's open in Acrobat, I can see that the document appears as expected. However, it doesn't yet have any form elements. To make it into a form, once again, I select More Tools, then Prepare Form, and then Start. Within a few moments, Acrobat recognizes the fields in the document as form elements, and I now have a fully functional form. I can fill in the various fields and click the checkboxes. It's now ready to be saved as a final version so that it can be used in the office. Even the signature block has been recognized, and I now have the option to add my digital signature. To add an extra layer of protection and professionalism, and to give an added sense of security, you may want to add password protection to certain documents. To add a password, I select More Tools and then Protect. I then select Protect Using Password and add a password for opening the file, usually something simple like the word lawyer in all lowercase letters. Although this is a relatively weak password, the point of adding it is simply to give clients a greater sense of security and to deter anyone who may casually come across the file and try to open it. One final Acrobat feature that's very useful is the ability to combine documents and add and remove pages. After selecting 2 or more files in the File Navigator, I click Combine Files in Acrobat. Acrobat then opens and allows me to choose the order in which the files will appear in the newly created document. If I want to change the order of the pages, I click on the Pages icon and then click and drag to reorder the pages. This can come in handy if you've scanned a document made of many pages which aren't organized and you need to reorder them. Along with making custom forms, producing mail merges can also be particularly useful in legal practice. A mail merge is a process by which you can create a batch of the same document with only certain changes being made. For example, imagine that you want to send a form letter to 25 corporate clients and invite them to an event. The only difference between the letters will be the information specific to each recipient, such as name, company name, and address. Once the form of the letter is produced, the next step is to collect the client information to populate the letter. In a spreadsheet, I input the client information into the various columns. Now that I have my database of 25 entries, I open the draft letter in Microsoft Word. Click Mailings, select Recipients, use an existing list, and then navigate to my spreadsheet and select Open and then OK. Because the spreadsheet column headings match the names of the fields in my letter, when I select Preview Results, I see that the different entries have replaced the fields in my letter. I now have 25 letters in one single document. I can now select Finish and Merge to print the letters. Before sending them, I'll print them as a .pdf so that I can proofread them carefully to ensure that the mail merge worked correctly and that the letters don't contain any errors. In the right circumstances, a mail merge can be a very powerful tool and save you huge amounts of time. To test the difference in time it would take to complete the task of producing the letters manually versus using a mail merge, I tested it by using both methods. In general, using a mail merge was about 3 times faster. In addition to taking longer, the manual method was also more prone to error due to the repetitive nature of data entry. Also, if I want to produce envelopes for each letter, this can also be done as part of the mail merge process. Beyond mail merges, there are further techniques which can be used to turn ordinary precedents into more useful ones, which contain fields that can be changed across the entire document. If you're using Microsoft Office, you already have the necessary software. It's just a matter of knowing how to use it. For example, as part of my practice, I routinely drafted court application documents. Instead of taking the usual approach of using multiple files and making changes in multiple locations within each file, I used one single precedent which contains all of the forms that I needed. Instead of opening and closing different documents and repeatedly inserting repetitive information, I made the changes in one place, in one document, and like magic, the information updated everywhere in every form throughout. Once the information had been updated within the document, I simply removed the forms and clauses that didn't apply, and I was done. For example, in this application, when I updated the document with the name of the deceased, it updated it in 57 places across all of the 43 forms. When I updated the name of the registry, it updated it in 66 places across the 43 forms. In total, this precedent includes more than 20 fields that can be used to make over 200 changes to the document. Although I've used this method for many years, I still marvel at how quickly and accurately it works to produce final documents, how it works for various documents across different practice areas, and how much time it has saved me. If you're interested in this process, please get in touch with me. Although it can be nice to enjoy the tangibility of paper documents, they simply can't compare to digital documents in terms of flexibility and utility. I hope that this lesson has inspired you to look into the full range of digital document tools that are available so that you can enjoy greater increases in your productivity. Staying safe in today's online world is becoming more and more challenging for lawyers and law firms. Hackers and online fraudsters routinely target law firms with malware and phishing scams because legal practice often involves conducting high-value financial transactions and regularly sending and receiving large volumes of communication. Because these activities are often conducted online and entail large sums of money, it presents scammers with opportunities and incentives to try to insert themselves and defraud victims. Even worse, hackers know that lawyers can generally afford to pay ransoms if they can succeed in holding confidential client information hostage. In this lesson, I'll be discussing some basic principles about online security to help keep you and your office safe online. How many email messages do you send and receive in a day? If you're like me, you likely send and receive countless emails every day as part of your work. How many times a day do you do some or all of the following? Send files or click links in emails or on web pages, access online services such as online banking, land registry and taxation authorities, and online court registry and search databases. Download files onto your devices from email attachments or website links, or visit and interact with websites, including downloading and installing software. You likely carry out some or all of these tasks every day. While these tasks are perfectly normal ways to use a computer, they can unfortunately all potentially lead to security breaches. Before I discuss specific ways to stay safe from such breaches, I need to explain more about the two currently most dangerous online threats, malware and phishing. Malware is a broad term that means any malicious software that's designed to damage computer systems or users. This includes many different types of software, such as viruses, worms, Trojan horses, spyware, adware, and ransomware. Ransomware in particular is one of the most dangerous kinds of malware for lawyers and law firms. It involves a virus entering a computer to steal information or block access to files by encrypting them. Once the files have been infected, the hacker may threaten to publish the data online or prevent access to the encrypted files unless a ransom is paid to unlock them. Unfortunately, even if a ransom is paid, there's no guarantee that the hacker will actually provide access to the files. Phishing refers to fraudulent attempts to gain access to information or data, which are made by scammers who disguise themselves as trustworthy entities. The main goal of phishing is to obtain usernames and passwords by tricking users into thinking that they're providing their information to a trusted entity. Phishing is typically carried out by email, instant messaging, or text messaging. It typically directs users to enter personal information at fake websites, which imitate the look and feel of legitimate websites to which the user is accustomed. For example, scammers may target users who use a particular bank and send out fake emails that copy or spoof the style of emails that would normally come from that bank. The fake email will contain a link, and once the user clicks it, the user will be directed to a fake web page which looks like the normal bank login page. At the fake login page, if the user enters their ID and passwords, the scammers will now have that information and be able to access their account. By equipping yourself with a greater understanding of what to avoid, and by using the following practices, you can reduce the threats that come from malware and phishing. Practice 1. Use antivirus software. In the early days of internet and network computing, viruses were one of the primary threats that imperiled computer users and the integrity of their systems. To combat viruses, antivirus software was developed with the goal of identifying and removing viruses and cleaning and repairing infected files. Although threats from traditional viruses have somewhat been overshadowed by newer threats coming from malware and phishing, it's still important to use reputable and up-to-date antivirus software to ensure protection from any new viruses that hackers may be developing, including ransomware. Practice 2. Enable viewing of file extensions. When you download files onto your computer, it's important to be able to see the file extension that they have so that you know what kinds of files they are. If a colleague is sending you a document, you should expect it to have a familiar file extension, such as .pdf if it's an Adobe file, or .docx if it's a Microsoft Word file. If someone sends you a file purporting to be a document, but it has an unfamiliar file extension, such as .exe, .bat, or something else, This may suggest that it's malware. To ensure that you can see file extensions in Microsoft Windows, open a new File Explorer window, click View, and then Options. Once the Options dialog window opens, click View, and ensure that the box next to Hide Extensions for Known File Types isn't checked. While you're here, also ensure that the bullet next to Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives is selected. By being able to see file extensions and more files, you may be able to notice suspicious files before clicking on them and inadvertently activating a virus. Practice 3. Use anti-spam software. Spam filter software deals with spam email by quarantining it, allowing users to review and restore quarantined email if it was mistakenly marked as spam, and, if the user takes no action, scheduling a future date to delete quarantined spam. Whereas spam of the past mostly consisted of annoying but mostly harmless advertisements, a high volume of modern spam contains dangerous phishing links. Given the increased use of phishing and malware which is sent to users by email, spam filters are now more important than ever. Practice 4. Use reputable software. To ensure that you're using trustworthy software, I recommend only using software made by well-known developers. If you want to use a piece of software, but you don't know if the developer is reputable, I recommend getting in touch with them by telephone. Another avenue is to use distribution software such as the Microsoft Store, Apple Store, or Google Play, which provides information on how many users have downloaded and are using particular software applications. If an application has been downloaded and used by millions of people, you can generally expect that it's trustworthy and reputable. Practice 5. Use two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication, also known as 2FA, is a method of confirming the identity of a user by combining the use of different authentication factors. In the online world, a powerful form of 2FA is the use of one-time codes to supplement online passwords. For example, when I sign into my Adobe account, I enter a password, and then Adobe sends a code to my smartphone. To access my account, I need to enter both my password and the code from Adobe. This is a very effective countermeasure against scammers who are working to hack into accounts. Even if a scammer had my account password, they need to have both my password and the code sent to my phone to access my account. Although it can be inconvenient to use two different forms of authentication to access an account, two-factor authentication is currently one of the most effective countermeasures against phishing. Practice 6. Maintain a robust backup system. By keeping current backups in different secure locations, files can ideally be restored quickly if a ransomware attack succeeds. In general, backups should be made regularly and kept in different off-site and on-site locations, and on the cloud, as is appropriate. If you store your data on external hard drives, you may want to use encryption software, such as Microsoft's BitLocker, to encrypt the drives with a password. If people try to access hard drives encrypted with BitLocker, they can't get access without the password. Practice 7. Be vigilant. Although antivirus and anti-spam software are useful tools for combating malware and phishing, software isn't a perfect solution and won't save users who click every link and download every attachment. The strongest form of protection against online threats is vigilance and scrutiny, being aware of your own behavior and being critical of the links and attachments that you encounter. A useful technique for verifying links in a web browser is to hover your cursor over links and read the text at the bottom of the window, which tells you where the links go. For example, this email is a phishing scam which was sent to my personal email. It looks like the email is from PayPal and purports to be about a payment of $60 that I supposedly sent to Equestrian LLC. In reality, I've never heard of Equestrian LLC or a $60 payment, and the scammer behind it knows it. The scammer who sent me this email would be counting on the transaction being unfamiliar to me and expect me to want to save myself from being charged and therefore click the cancel purchase button. Clicking the button is exactly what the scammer wants. When I hover my mouse over the button, I see that it doesn't go to PayPal and instead goes to something called sartutu.com. Although I don't know what sartutu.com is, I don't want to find out. Given that it's hidden in an email that's mimicking one from PayPal, I can be reasonably assured that it's illegitimate. Further, although it seems that the message is from the email address service@paypal.com, the scammers have actually put this in the field where the sender's name is supposed to be. The email is actually from the 59-character address here, which ends in .xyz. Although it doesn't look like a normal email address, this long string is actually the email address from which the email came. On another occasion, I was targeted in my role as a lawyer by scammers who tried to exploit the hierarchy at one of my previous firms. At the time, I was the newest associate. One day I received an email from someone who was impersonating one of the firm's named partners. Because it was a busy day for me, I didn't notice that the email address didn't match the partner's usual address. The message was innocent enough and said something to the effect of, "Hi Sean, do you have time to help me with something?" After reading the email, I responded quickly with something short like, "Good morning, yes indeed, what can I help with?" After a few minutes had passed, I received a response email containing a strange request. It asked me to transfer a non-specific amount of money to an unfamiliar bank account. The request didn't reference a client file or the purpose of the transfer. After reading the email, I paused and thought about how out of keeping it was with our normal practices. While looking at the email again, I spotted the fake email address, realized that I was communicating with a scammer, and reported the incident to our office manager. Upon further consideration, I surmised that the scammer looked at our firm's website to collect my email address and determine my position relative to the senior partner. In perpetrating the scammer was likely trying to catch an unwary junior associate who was eager to assist a senior partner with a request. The scammer had likely hoped that my eagerness to help would override my judgment and cause me to blindly follow commands. Fortunately, no harm was done as I recognized that the request was bogus, spotted the fake email address, and ended communications with the scammer before it went any further. In general, the first line of defense from online attacks is to not be fooled and to not be used as a tool by scammers. Just as scammers may target new associates as being susceptible, so too may assistants and students be targeted. The job of assistants and students is to help lawyers do their work. If scammers can be successful in impersonating lawyers and fooling assistants or students, they may be able to cause significant damage. Malware and scams depend on unwitting users making wrong moves, allowing viruses in, and buying into scams. Although there are forms of software that can help with dealing with malware and phishing, you and your colleagues are ultimately the best line of defense when it comes to dealing with online security issues. I hope that you'll put some or all of my suggestions in place today to help keep you and yours safe from online threats. Thank you for your time and attention in completing the computer software module. I hope that I was able to teach you many practical things that you can use today to improve how you approach your legal work. By improving procedural efficiencies and workflow now, you can enjoy better results and greater payoffs in the future. Further, by being innovative and shaving bits of time off of how long it takes you to complete routine tasks, you can get things done quicker and improve the quality of your work. If you manage an office, I hope that you'll consider implementing some of the strategies I've discussed in your workplace to cause an even greater benefit to your organization. For me, it's a passion to keep current with technology and use all of the different kinds of resources that are available to assist with workload management and productivity. If you have any software tips or tricks of your own that you'd like to share with me, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always interested in learning about new ways that I can improve my work and this course. Also, if you're experiencing any ongoing issues or pain points that I didn't discuss in relation to this module, please let me know so that I can produce further materials and keep improving this course. Thank you again for completing the software module. Once more, I'm Sean Dillman.